No engineer wants any more complexity. You know, the world of web applications, servers, front ends, caches, databases, DevOps, scaling, all this junk is already complex enough, right? But, the question is always, does this tool provide more value than not? All right, what's up, guys? I'm here to talk about GraphQL once again. Today, I want to continue exploring the question, is GraphQL hype? This is going to be part of a new series called Is It Hype, where I try out existing and new technologies and see why they're picking up steam or see why they would pick up steam. So this is the second time that I've used and tried to implement GraphQL. Today, I want to take what I learned last week to the next level. I've had some time to think about, what it's useful for and to think over the structures that the GraphQL engineers have set up. So feel free to comment if I'm missing the point of GraphQL or if I'm, misusing it. Love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to be setting up a GraphQL Express server. So I'll be reading and writing newsletter subscriptions and adding new users. And I'll probably use something simple as a backend. I'll probably just use I'm thinking SQLite, just kind of as a mock backend. So let's dive in. All right, so first things first, I have an empty repository here, GraphQL 2. So let's get started here. I'm going to jump into the documentation. And we're looking for an Express server. So let's look for that. There we go, Express GraphQL. Awesome. So I just want to get a basic example up and running. So let's get to work. So yarn init. And then I'll do yarn add. Just copy these. Sweet. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this example. And I think I want to have a client and server here. And the client can even just be like a Node.js script. I just need to make HTTP request. So let's see. We'll just try to keep it as flat as possible. So I'll just do server.js. Paste that, and let's hop into package and create basic script here. Let's see, do I have NodeMun installed? I do. Just use that. Let's see how that works. Change this to dev. Okay, so that seems to be running. Let me try to just add a console log here. Cool, so that is running. So now I have a server auto restarting and we have a basic GraphQL server set up. So let me create a client script. So let's do client dot, maybe I can just do this whole thing in JS just to keep it simple. Okay, so I just need to make a request. So here's my endpoint. And then we'll make a main. And maybe I want to make this an MJS file, but there we go. Yeah, exactly what I wanted. So I love that. Copilot just giving me everything I need here. Let me just look over this. Always double check your Copilot output. Sometimes it works great. Other times it is guessing completely wrong from the wrong code base, the wrong context, whatever it might be. But this looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and open up another terminal here. and create another script. So I'm going to change this to server, and then I'll use my dev, because I'll be running this more often to run my client.js. So let's see how that works. Okay, get an error. No fetch, because I don't have node fetch installed, I believe. Yeah. So let me just go ahead and add node fetch. Node fetch, and let's rerun. Let's see, what do we have? All right, I'm in basic JS, so I guess I'll just require, right? All right, let me try an MJS file. Okay, so a couple minutes later here, I've got just got this basic client MJS file just so we can use modern imports here. And I have a basic fetch, so we're just running the query. We're grabbing hello, and then we have this post business. So that's great. So we're just console logging. So our client's very simple. It's just going to be hitting our server. All the details will really be in the server. So first things first, I want to create a structure that allows me to read and write newsletter subscriptions. So say, you have a personal blog, personal website, and you need to keep track of all of your subscribers, right? All the people that want to see your content on a regular basis. So you'll store an email and maybe like an arbitrary ID with that. So I will do that here. And let me just start with a basic object to store this as like a temporary database. So we'll just do db equals this, and then I'll have subscribers. And this will just turn into a, sure, we'll use that as the default, and we'll just change the name to email. All right, so this will be john@gmail.com. All right, so something simple like that. We'll add two more. Actually, let me see if I can get a autocomplete. Okay, yeah, tim@gmail.com. And then we'll do, Nathan@gmail.com, whatever. Cool, so now we have subscribers, and now I need to update the query to obtain these subscribers, right? So I'll write the list method to get first. So let me do that. And let me hop back over to the docs so I can refresh myself on how exactly this works. I believe it's just this, right? So I set up a new type, subscriber, and in there we have the ID, which is a string, and then we have the email, which is also a string. And then inside the query, we remove hello, and actually I'll leave that for now, but I'll add, yeah, exactly, subscribers. Then we have this list of subscribers, and then in the resolver, I'm really gonna change this. I don't like that name, they just call it root. This is a resolvers. And then I'll add, yep, subscribers, and then we'll return db subscribers, exactly. Copilot is amazing. Yeah, I really believe that engineers who have Copilot versus engineers without are going to be substantially faster in the long run. So if you don't have Copilot, if you don't know what it is, definitely check it out. GitHub Copilot, it's an amazing tool. When it works, it's amazing. When it doesn't work, not so bad. Okay, so let's continue. So that should give me my subscribers. Let me go ahead and hop over to my client and just try to run this. So query, I'm gonna run subscribers. And what fields do I want? I want all of them. So ID string, or sorry, ID email, yep. So let's see what we get there. Cool, so we get object here. I'm gonna change my output to, I wanna stringify my results. So Yep, and I want it formatted. Let me get rid of some of these parentheses. Cool, let me see how that looks. Great. So you can see here on the client, in this example node script I'm running, my client.mjs, I have all my subscribers back. So that's fantastic. And I'm going to change this query to, let's see what I want to call this. I guess we just keep the name query. Let's see. Let me do a little bit of formatting here on the client so that I can make this more dynamic. So this is going to be, I'm going to call it a GraphQL request. Cool. I'm going to lift this in. And then as an example, exactly GraphQL requests. And this is going to be, I want this to be the params as a whole. So subscriber query, right? And all right, then I can do this, and then I can replace the request content. So let me run this, make sure that works okay. Great, so now I can separate on the client side each individual query. And I think in the long run, you would store this somewhere on your client so that you could have these individual, like a whole list of these different types of requests, probably an object so you can map these requests, or at least have them stored as like constants in some file on the client side. But so let's just go from there. So that's great. So now I can read a list of subscribers. So next thing, I need to be able to add a new subscriber, right? Someone hits your page, they like your content, they like your blog, now they need to subscribe. And so now I need a mutation that will actually add a new email to the database. So let's do that. I'm gonna do a couple things here. I'm gonna add this like temporary ID field, and it's gonna start at 1, and then I'm going to increment my subscribers so that when I get a new one, I can just do ID ++. So that's great. And then I'm going to add a new resolver, add subscriber. Let's see how it handles this. Okay. So add subscriber. And basically we're just going to look for the email. I'm going to use db subscribers push, and then I'm going to return all existing subscribers after the mutation has occurred. So next I will add the mutation type. As we learned in the previous video, we need to have a query and a mutation top level on the schema. Cool, so I'll do this and I'll return all subscribers. I'm not just going to return one. So I'll do that there. And now I need to create this, make sure that this exists. I'll switch the name, and I'm just going to log to make sure that this is coming through. Sweet. Do ID, ID++. And that's a const, so let me change that. Okay, I think I'm good there. Let me double check to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah. Okay, great. And then let me write the client-side query. So this is going to be a, create subscriber query. And let's see. I'm going to write this one. So we'll do a mutation. Let's see, how does this look? Create subscriber. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not all too familiar with this mutation syntax. Input or email, and then I say $email because that's what I'm referencing, and then I return these values. So let's see if that works. Is that something wrong on my server? It totally is. It's just my server. I have this JSON stringify args and it's blowing everything up. I'm just gonna comment that out and then run create subscriber args email. I'll bet that was it. Yep. Okay, so of course, it's always your fault when you're engineering, especially when you're learning something new, but you know, we knocked it out and we're moving on. So now my email is coming in null. So let me figure out what's going on there. Is this just a single object? I'm not sure, but it looks like the first is what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to look at the first parameter is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to pull the first param there, and then I'm just going to rerun. Cool, great. So it looks like my email got in there just fine. And I'm going to rerun. Remember, my server isn't updating, so my database object here is still going to be alive, right? I haven't restarted my server yet, so I'm just going to rerun this. We should see 2 Dans and ID 5 on the second one. Perfect. So that's the result here. And that looks great. So I am successfully reading and writing. Let me delete this hello. Cool. And that'll restart the server. Okay, so this makes sense. So what else will we need? I mean, we could add a remove. Let's go ahead and add a remove subscriber. Say, you know, your subscriber unsubscribed from your newsletter, so you need to remove them from your database. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'll do remove subscriber query, and then I'll do the kind of same thing. And this structure, I think, is making a bit more sense. The mutation on the top level is just passing in the variables to the actual mutation that's written on the server, I believe. So I could theoretically name this anything. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Let's see. So mutation remove subscriber, that looks right. Remove. Now let's get all the fields back. Cool, and let's create another query for this. And I'm passing in ID of the subscriber now. So I'm gonna remove ID number 1 and change this to remove subscriber. And then I'm gonna copy this mutation and move it over to the back end and basically run the same thing. It's gonna be an ID, and then I need to implement this method in my resolver. Yeah, Copilot's doing a lot of work for me here. Let me remove my logs. It's going to parse the ID. And then we're splicing. Yep, that looks great. All right, remove subscriber. Cool, so when this runs, this will remove a subscriber from my database. It'll remove the ID number 1. So we should see Tim not in the list getting returned. So let's see if I made any mistakes here. ID sub, not a valid value. So ID is a string, so let me bump this as a string. And I actually I want to test this too. I want to see if I can name this top level mutation anything. So I'm just going to add YQ and see what happens. Great, so that works. So it really doesn't matter what this top level is called. It's basically just a wrapper to pass in my functions, or sorry, my variables for the query. Let me read about that for a moment here. Weird. They don't really talk about it. They don't really talk about that top level, at least not that I can see immediately. Anyway, so okay, so that's removing a subscriber. Yeah, this just makes sense. It's just all starting to fit together. I think this is the core GraphQL. It's just this on repeat after this. So, okay, so let's see. So let's say now I have these lists of subscribers. I can add subscribers. I can remove them. I want to be able to search through my subscribers to look for someone specific. I don't really know the real life use case for this, but it certainly could be possible. So let's add a GraphQL query and resolver for that. So I'm going to add a query called find subscriber. And okay, so we get an ID. Yeah, that looks good. Do we want to do this by ID? Sure, why not? And then I'll add this method here. I'll just go ahead and do basic args and then ID, args.id. Let me try to type this out before, okay, GitHub Copilot's too fast. Okay, but I need this to be subscriber. I wonder how this handles undefined. I guess by not having the bang, right? Maybe. Okay, so let me just hop over to the client, copy this, move this to ID, and then we'll add a new find subscriber query. And so this is going to be query, and it's just going to be find subscriber. So I can pass a specific ID in here. I do want to pass in a variable, so I'll need that. I believe I'll need that top level, you know, find subscriber, and then I'll do. How's this done? $, ID, and then pass in a string. So a string must be present, and then find subscriber. Right? Right, and then I'll return the ID email, sure, yeah. Okay, so let's try that. So this should just return john@gmail.com, let's see. Okay, so we have an error here. It looks like I'm misinterpreting this find functionality, specifically when there's a query. Find subscriber, make sure that's the right. Oh, int, change this to a string. I'm still on an error. Okay, so would they really change the syntax between the query and the mutation? Oh no, my syntax is just wrong. Okay. Unexpected, do I have an extra here? Looks like I do. Okay, find subscriber null. This is coming in as a number, so the triple equalities is breaking. I mean, I can just cheese this, right? And this is not recommended practice. There we go. So that works because I convert it to a string. Let me do this like a non-stupid way. Let me just wrap it as a string. All right. Just call string on it. That should do the trick, yeah. And then I'll do it down here when I add. So I'll just call string on my ID. That is a number, and I'm converting. Okay, great. So, okay, yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so this is great. So I have GraphQL running. I have this like nice little temporary database. I want to do one more thing here with this GraphQL example. I want to add SQLite so that we're kind of mocking out, you know, like our client, database, and then server. So I'm going to add SQLite, point it to a local file, and then just run some queries. And instead of updating this local database object, I can look at the SQLite database file. So let's just look for some documentation on that. Let's see, let's get Express SQLite. Let me see what we have here by default. Wait, Express, what am I supposed to be searching here? SQL, sure, SQLite. Okay, so let's get this installed. We'll do SQLite 3. And that's on a package. And now these functions here, let me make a local SQLite wrapper class. So SQL, I'll actually just still call it database, but I'll have methods here, right? So I'll have async methods here, fetch subscribers, and then we'll have create subscriber, delete, and I have find. All right, this passes in an ID. Great. And let's see. Let's get SQL. So I have SQLite now installed. Let me go ahead and reference it. SQLDB. Cool. So there's a database file. Probably needs an actual reference, I imagine, right? So let's do /. What's going on here? Cannot find module SQLite. SQLite 3. Great, so that works fine. And so first things first, I need to initialize, right? So I'll run a database.init. Yeah, and exactly. Okay. Just going to create table if not exists. And of course we have an error. Cannot access database. Well, it doesn't exist yet, so we'll wait. Get down to the bottom here. Cool. Let's see if we got that database file. We did, db.sql. Cool, so that's the SQLite database is being created. Now, let's see. Now let's just go ahead and create some methods here. So fetch subscribers, gonna do yeah, this. Copilot is creepy good, but this is exactly what I want. And then let me do a find. Let's see if Copilot can knock out a find for me, of course. Really cool. Great, and let's see if we can do a create if I pass in the email. And then a delete with the ID. Okay, so first things first, let me change the find method. No, let me change the subscriber method. So I'll make this async. I assume you can just make your resolvers async. I hope so. And I'll do await database fetch subscribers. So let me just test this first. And I'll run this first method here. And then, great. So empty list of subscribers. It looks like the query worked just fine. So let me go ahead and add some items. So let me update the create method to grab the email, and then I'll run await database dot create subscriber, and I'll pass an email. And then what I'll do is I'll await database dot fetch subscribers, right? Because I need to return all the subscribers after that method completes. What happened here? Oh yeah, we just need to make this async. Great, and let's run this. Cool, so I think that worked. ID 4, why is ID 4? Database create subscriber. Oh, I did give it an ID. Okay, I guess that's fine. Well, but I want this to auto increment. Text primary key. Let me make this a UUID. Let me just make a random function here. Generate UUID, return, and yeah, we'll just get anything here. Okay. Can we be done? There. Okay, yeah, I just need some random ID. I'm gonna use that instead. So when I create, we'll just place that in here. Great, and I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of my previous temporary database. And what am I gonna do here? I'm gonna go ahead and minimize my new SQL database and make sure that the rest of my resolver functions have been updated. So there's the ID. I'm going to get sub, and sub equals now database.find subscribers exactly. And for my remove, we're going to run await database delete subscriber, and then we're going to fetch my new list of subscribers. So that's that. This should all be working. Thanks to Copilot, I was able to write this all really quickly without having to dig into all the SQLite documentation. So that's great. Let's hop down to the bottom here. I have an error. Of course, I need async functions. Okay, great. So that fixed that. Let me go ahead and test out my new ID generation function. We're going to create a couple more emails. Jim, ID not defined. Let's see. I missed ID somewhere. I just need to define my ID before I use it. So there, I'll generate an ID up there, and then I'll run that there. So okay, let's run. Great, so we have Jim, and then we have this automatically generated UID. Let me create a couple more users. Kim, and we'll run that. Great, and then I'll close this, or I'll comment that out, and then I just want to read all of my subscribers. So I'm running my subscriber query here. Cool, so as you can see, all my subs in there. Now I'm going to delete myself from this subscriber list. I'm going to delete by ID 4. Let's pass in number 4 there and run. Okay, looks like I've got a bug. Let me see what I did there on my remove sub. Let's see, once the ID, delete subscriber, ID. I just need to resolve true here. Nothing else special needs to happen. So resolve true, and that's it. So let me rerun that. Cool, so that worked. Looks like I removed myself, and we can test that by running the list. So yeah, looks like I am dan@gmail.com is no longer in the list. That's fantastic. Let's go ahead and run find. So let me grab Kim's ID, and pass that in the find subscriber query with the variable. And let's run this. Great, and it gives me back Kim. Really cool. One more thing I want to do here before I wrap up. So I've created a database, I've created a nice Express server. You can start to put the pieces together to see how this can be super useful. But at this point, it's just an API, right? I've written 4 different API endpoints, and I'm just querying them individually, right? The cool part is that in a way, you can say that they're all grouped together through the schema, but really I had to write every single resolver, right? Which again, it's more or less like you're creating your individual API endpoints. But the really cool part, in my opinion, here about GraphQL is that I can combine my queries, right? So let me just try this and show you exactly what I mean. We'll call this compound query. Okay, so here's me fetching my subs. I'm curious, can I fetch my subs again? So it flattened it. Okay, so that's cool. So it flattened it. Can I do this? I want to run multiple queries in the same statement, right? So find subscriber 1, and then return all the information. 1 does not exist. Let me grab Kim's ID. It looks like this is going to work. Okay, so this does work. So this is really interesting, right? It's a simple kind of contrived example, but to me, this shows the power of GraphQL, right? I have a single query with 2 requests, right? I'm basically making 2 requests in one, right? So you can imagine you're loading like a new page on your website, and you have 6 different sections of your site, right? Let's say it's like a complex web app. You can run a single GraphQL query to fetch everything you need. Now, I think that there is probably a debate around if that's fast. Like say you're fetching a lot of complex data and it bogs down your UI because you have to freeze everything until everything loads. To me, that seems like kind of the reverse of what you would want to do. You would want to separate all of your requests into one, which again, with GraphQL, you could still do, right? And it'd all be hitting a single endpoint. So in that way, it seems, it's flexible, but I think that there is always going to be an argument to just create your own API endpoint, to create individual API endpoints. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to play with this some more. I'm going to actually use GraphQL in some of my own personal applications. Part of the reason I use this subscriber example is that I need to build something out like this, or I have built something out like this. And right now, that's all sitting in a backend where it's essentially just an API request. So I'm going to try converting that to a GraphQL endpoint and just see how it feels. See if it's faster, see if I can eliminate some code, see if it's worse, see if it's slower. I have heard some negative feedback that GraphQL is a lot more boilerplate. There's a learning curve for all your engineers. It's just kind of like another layer that you have to consider, and it just kind of adds additional complexity to your stack, right? Which of course, no engineer wants any more complexity. The world of web applications, servers, front ends, caches, databases, DevOps scaling, all this junk is already complex enough, right? But the question is always, does this tool provide more value than not? I need to do some more research, but I'm going to go ahead and say GraphQL is hype. It is as useful as people say it is. This is why companies are picking it up. This is why companies have been picking it up. I know I'm kind of late to the game here in terms of GraphQL, but I'm going to go ahead and say GraphQL is hype. Let me know what you guys think. If you think GraphQL is cool, if it does have value, comment down below. If you think it doesn't, also comment. I want to know why, so I can, go forward using this in more of my technologies versus not. So we'll see. So far, I like GraphQL. There is a learning curve, quite an annoying learning curve, I would say. That, and combined with the docs not being super great, kind of a rough onboarding experience. Surely, if I was working with someone who knew GraphQL already, it would be a lot smoother. But that's just how it goes when you're learning new technology on your own. You just have to try it and see, what happens. But anyway, thank you guys. I really appreciate your time. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and I hope all your programming is going well and you're building really cool things. I'll see you in the next one.